Good night, good night, good night. We are back for the mid year reset. We're back from mid year reset. I didn't come on last night. I don't know how many of y'all missed me, but I'm really looking forward to this little chat that we're going to have tonight because I spent a lot of my morning this morning with one of my mentors. I strongly believe in mentorship. And if you've never actually had a mentor, this is actually something I've always wanted in my life, like especially as part of my career journey. And I was just never able to focus on it, secure somebody, actually approach somebody about mentorship. And I actually took it on for myself this year. I decided that coming into, actually, no, last year, I decided that in 2022, especially because I was shaping up to start my own company, I wanted to be mentored by somebody who didn't just have the business side, like, they'd already amassed their millions, but also had this part of their, themselves, the mindset and the mental resilience part, because it's such a big part of who I am and how I live my life. Just the way that I focus a lot on intention and possibility thinking, and being more mindful, and using energy to support kind of the direction that you're heading in your life. And so I spent almost 2 hours this morning just catching up with my mentor. I haven't spoken to her in a few months. And the intention of my conversation with her was to really help me to get back to center. So when you're thinking about how do I get support from other people that are a part of my life, that's one of the things you want to think about. You want to have persons that are a part of your network that are going to be real with you, right? And at the same time, they're not going to leave you feeling bad about yourself. Because I know that there's this thinking that, you have to have the real ones because they're going to break it down and they're going to tell you about yourself. And no, if that energy does not align with what you're trying to create for your life, then you need to find people whose energy aligns with what you're trying to create. And then you get your mentors from that. You get your close knit friend group, whatever, the whole thing, birds of a feather flock together, all of that, right? So anywho, so I spent some time with her this morning, and there are a couple of things that came out of the conversation that were very helpful for me. And so I wanted to talk about one of those areas tonight. And she talked to me about just how much resilience I've actually created in my own life based on the different challenges that I've already encountered, right? So, there are multiple things that are ebbing and flowing through my life. And when we were having this discussion, she started to kind of take me on a trip down memory lane about all the different things that I'd overcome in the past. And it reminded me of how much my challenges, the different areas in my life, where they call it the struggle bus, right? When you have those struggle bus moments, how much being able to go through those situations, how those situations help to prepare you for all the other things that come after that. Because it's like, well, if I can go through that, then what can I leverage from that experience that I can use in my now moment? So, as we're getting ready for the second half of the year, guys, I'm going to encourage you to not discount the challenges that you faced in the past. We can sometimes be very quick to want to shelve things that may have hurt us in the past because we don't want to focus on it. And truth be told, it's not, when I say don't discount it, I'm not saying for you to go sit in the past situations, things that you've overcome, and wallow there, right? That's not the intention of it. I mean, I've overcome some crazy things in my life, crazy moments, experiences in all areas of my life. I've been laid off, and I've had to weather the storm of not having income. Okay. um I've been divorced, and I've had to weather all the different things that come along with that. When you have a failed relationship, especially when you have a marriage, you have children, you have connected families, there can be a lot of shame and guilt and just blame that comes with stepping away from that relationship. And yet, in the midst of all of the things that you experience while you're in it, when you look back and you think about the person that you were when you went through that situation and the person that you are now, however many years later, you kind of have to be like, whoa, how much have I grown? And so I did some of that work today. When I was in my mentorship session, I did the work of reflecting on really challenging times in my past. For example, when I was going through that life collapse in 2010 and I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and at the same time, I was in the middle of my separation, and I was moving countries, when I was in that space, I felt so lost. Like I literally felt like when I look back at it now, like when I think about where my head is now compared to where it was then, it was like I was a zombie, honestly. I was just moving from situation to situation. I had a lot of toxic relationships, toxic experiences that I was involved in. Just my mindset was just like I was just doing all kind of craziness. I mean, I was drinking my pee. I was, going to all these crazy doctors to try to figure out what other kind of ways I could help myself. And I was operating from a lot of fear and um, self-doubt and uncertainty. There was so much uncertainty, and I was just kind of wondering. At least it felt. No, when I look back, I can say I was wondering because I have a lot more self-awareness and a lot more consciousness now, right? But when I was in it, it just felt like a whole heap of pressure. It felt like pain. It felt like a lot of suffering. I felt discouraged and down. I felt like, the only thing I could do is take the next step that was in front of me. And I made decisions that never make no sense to me then. It's just like I was just deciding so I could move on to the next thing. I just wanted to figure out, how do I get on with my life? There wasn't much consciousness in the decisions I was taking. It was more just, I just need to get on with my life. I just need to get on with my life. And so that was the driving factor. There wasn't an intentionality about it. And yet I survived, right? I survived that. And now, 13 years later, as I go through whatever my current set of challenges are, I can look back and I can say, my God, 13 years of growth, what has that done for me? And when I look back at those times, I'm like, okay, what's the difference between Stacy 2010 and Stacy 2023? And I can write down those things and talk about how much I've learned and grown, and how much skills I've amassed, how my life has transformed. And what did I do to make that happen? Like, what are some of the things that I did that made that difference, right? What are some of the things that I used even in my state of feeling lost and having self-doubt? What are some of the things that I used back then that I can leverage now when I'm even more conscious and more self-aware? Right? It's like I have this superpower of failing. I have this superpower of having a total life pop down. And because I have that superpower, I can now say, okay, this worked when I was struggling. This worked when I was facing hard times. This worked when I was wallowing in self doubt and guilt and shame. This worked when I was seeing a psychiatrist because I was diagnosed clinically depressed and filled with anxiety. This worked when I wasn't getting sleep, right? And I write all of those things down. And now, when I'm in my mid years reset, I'm like, okay, what can I use from the times when I was depressed, when I was in anxiety, when I was having to see a psychiatrist so I never end up in the crazy ward, when I was broke down and broken, no money in the bank and taking care of 3 children? Like, what can I use from that time where all those things that I did to make it through? What can I pick up and bring over to here? So now, as I prepare for the second half of my year, what am I going to pick up from that period to say, okay, we can do challenging, we can do hard time, we can do struggle bus because we did it, right? And this is what we learned from it. And this is who I am because of it. And now I'm going to use that as a leverage for the rest of the time. So you're not doing that memory trekking so that you can feel bad about it. No, what's to feel bad about? You want to celebrate having surpassed, survived, thrived beyond that situation. The only thing I'll say to you is don't get caught in this trap, which is something that happens to me sometimes. Is I will take that walk down memory lane and I will sometimes get stuck in one of the thoughts about the past. Like, oh gosh, why I did that and Lord, and I end up in it, like credit card debt, as an example, is something that I think historically, since I've been in high school, it's something that I've historically just had a whole lot of negative energy around. And instead of looking back and thinking to myself, oh gosh, I just got myself in more debt. And it does never make sense. And see me here. No, I'm gonna think about, I have so much debt because I'm building this business and I've been putting myself in debt to try to build a business. Instead of doing that, which is something that I would typically do for myself, and it actually happened in this instance of building my company and looking at how I'm managing money and stuff like that. Instead of doing that, what I'm doing instead is I'm looking at, well, what was that? What did that debt allow me to do? Right? Like, okay, so I took on all this debt when I was living, had just been separated and was having my kids come, and I was fighting cancer, and I was doing all of this, stuff. What did I use that debt for? Oh, you use that debt to buy winter clothes. You use that debt to buy, stuff for them to be able to go to school. You use that debt to fix the car when you had that accident. And it's like, okay, so I wasn't just mindlessly spending money. No, I was using the debt to help me to rebuild my life, because that's what I had available to me then. And so it's the same thing I come forward on. I'm thinking, okay, so I'm using debt to build my business. Instead of me wallowing in the fact that, oh my gosh, I have this debt that I've created because I'm like, okay, what have I actually used that debt to do? Oh, I use the debt to actually help me to build this platform that I can now put my courses on for women. I use the debt to actually pay for some classes I need to take so I could be a better business owner. So, guys, don't discount the challenges. Don't discount the trying times. Don't discount those moments when you were low. Use them as leverage. Use the strategies that I've just gone over to help you to use those moments as leverage for what you are creating in the second half of the year. Okay? So I hope that's going to bring life to somebody tonight. I know it certainly was a complete mind shift for me. And every single time, it's not something that you use one and done. It's something that you can use over and over again. Even if it's kind of like backwards, for example, let's just say you didn't do it intentionally. So, like right now, I'm actually saying to you, go back and look at moments where you were struggling and find out how you showed up in those moments and see how you can use that to help you with how you're going to show up in your future. Let's say that's not how it's happening. Let's say that you're having one of those downward spiral moments where you're having memories of the past and you end up thinking about a low time in your past and you find yourself beating up yourself about it. When you realize that you're thinking about the past and you're beating up yourself about it, in that moment, ask yourself the question, say, but wait, what did I use to actually get beyond that? What about me was so resilient and so full of drive and full of purpose? What about me in those moments was so great that I can now pull on that to take me forward? That's what you want to do with it. So sometimes it's not even like you plan to go back there. Sometimes you end up there because you're actually in the worry. You're actually in the problem of the moment. And instead of doing the wallowing and the downward spiraling, instead what you're doing with it is you decide to flip it. You decide to pivot inside of the moment of it and start to dig deep into, well, what did I do? How did that help me? Okay? So thanks so much for joining, guys. I hope these strategies that we talked about today in terms of leveraging the difficult moments that you've had in your past, how to leverage those, that you can use them for this second half of the year as you are now doing your mid-year reset and planning to create that much more balance and success and transformation in your life. Because guess what? You deserve it. We all deserve to have amazing lives, and we all deserve to have the opportunities that we desire. Okay. So see you soon again in another media reset moment. I hope this was helpful for you. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.